Hello everyone. In this video with Juliet, I will go through many different things, exploring the self, discussing about the ego, a little bit of second brain, how I use it for my own personal growth, how that has benefited me from the rate of learning itself. So it's really worth it to watch this video and to explore the level of depth that people can achieve, basically, with the self-discovery of the self, obviously, and really being limitless. So I invite you to watch the video. Thank you.
Over the years, would you go back and revisit the...
It's a tricky one, yeah. And it's a tricky one because it's painful for a reason.
So I procrastinate on the growth, maybe.
Yeah, like a lot of benefits. What I'm doing is I'm very big in the second brain mythology. I'm starting a cohort now in that one. It's like really excited upon that.
Okay, I'll have to hear more about that.
Like what I'm often doing is I'm writing all of the stuff down in a certain way from the last week, and
Okay.
then I'm learning from the actions that I've gone through the last week. Then I'm doing that from the last month, from the last 3 months, from the last half year, from the last year.
Wow.
It's kind of painful to notice your own mistakes that you've just made in a conversation in somewhere. Just very painful. And making that step too big at the same time. So if you now want to look back at your diaries from 10 years ago, it's quite painful because you're like, ooh, then you're judging your previous version of yourself.
Okay.
And most people can only bear listening to a recording of themselves.
Right. Yeah. And my kids, it's so hard for them.
Yeah. Like just that, speak an audio recording, listen back to that. Because you will learn that gap will increase. And that's where the growth is. Because I sometimes now have insights, visions. Well, it's more insights. Like I'm walking down in the city here, a lot of people, and I'm like, oh, I just realized some behavior that I did poorly over all of my life. And I noticed like certain triggers coming up. It's like being aware of your subconscious.
Right.
So the whole conscious movement is actually, it's like literally, it's already in words. It's like becoming conscious of your unconscious behavior and recognizing them so you are in control over them.
Almost, for me, maybe I would think of it as I see an ego part that was sort of acting out, and I just let that ego part act out.
Yeah, and then the question is, what is for you an ego?
For me, anything other than my true, pure, loving essence, like everything else. So either like pure love, the pure essence, which I believe every soul it has, and then everything else I believe to be like any thought, just I don't know who it is that it was, probably Oprah who was reenacting this just situation where she would say a word. I don't know if it was from Deepak or from who, but she would say a word, close your eyes. She would say moon. And then, you're thinking of a moon. And then she would say, okay, we're going to just let that go and move on to the next one. Little white house or something in the woods. And so just having someone who isn't normally thinking taught to think the way that we're thinking about who we are and what we're attached to, that I think often people think they are their thoughts. But with that experiment, it's saying, okay, who was the one who was observing you picture the, or observe the observer of the thought. So to me, it's like the true loving essence is the one. It's the observer. It's the purity of all the good in the universe. So to me, it's hard to stay in that place, obviously. Even for people I feel who are meditating 14 hours a day, we are a human with thoughts, but to me, that's all ego. It's just, I mean, so I guess, it's hard to separate intelligence versus ego versus whatever. But yeah, so for me, I guess just the little question I have in my head is, what would my true self do? And if that wasn't if that wasn't it, if the thing that I said or the action that I took or the procrastination, I'm just like, okay, so let me just see who's running the show at this time, and let me just see what they need. So to me, that's what's your definition of ego? You have a different way of thinking about it?
In certain ways, it is, I think, it's a tricky one.
It sure is.
In a certain way, it is the thoughts that we presume to be true. So if I have a certain storyline in my head that the world consists out of a certain thing, or people like do stuff to me, or like normal interactions that I have, all of that is in a certain way a memory, a storyline that you keep telling yourself, like a belief system, over and over and over, that you perceive to be true. And it quite often results in behavior that other people could mention as that person has a big ego, because he's kind of like playing a role based on his own
Narrative or
storyline, narrative, yeah.
beliefs, yeah.
And that kind of creates us, so even the ego doesn't really exist in a certain way, but the ego is a word that we place around someone who's living his own belief system in such a deep level that he's not aware of his own patterns. It's
Yes.
it's a tricky one, and now with the Kickstarter, or with the cohort that I'm starting up,
Yes.
like you mentioned it as well, we are not our thoughts. We're the thing that observes our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even our emotions. We're that thing that observes our emotions. And with that, externalizing your thoughts, ideas into an external system, so digital system, will create that you're freeing yourself up from that thought. You still have access to it, you still have availability, but you don't need to cling along to that idea of having it.
And is that the second brain?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a beautiful way to, as a human, become the human observer of something that you put out there on paper, on the computer. So it's essentially like you're doing the spiritual action of being the observer of your thoughts and beliefs and your narratives, but you're doing it like physically in the physical world of, okay, I'm going to help myself out by putting it over there so that I can see it.
Yes.
Yes. And then consciously and intentionally manipulate it, or, it is so that you can then disseminate it and be of service. And yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yes. And recently someone asked me as well, as in, how does your growth go so quickly? Like comparison to where I was a year ago in Dubai. Like I was so paranoid that everyone was coming after me, and I was like, really, really bad. And then I already met like Mindvalley and people
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I was already like in my journey, but I was still experiencing a lot of bad trauma.
Okay. And so what's your answer to that? Just, I mean, I think my view is that, of course, it has a ton to do with you, and it also has to do with some sort of universal something where, because even now I feel like, it all ebbs and flows. Like sometimes, it's like the insights are pouring out even to your second brain, and sometimes there'll be just, something else is going on, and it's more quiet as far as the triggering of the inner wisdom.
Yeah.
So what do you say when you're asked that question of how does it come so fast?
It's like externalizing your thoughts and reviewing it, basically.
Okay, so your tool, the resources that you're putting into place, you feel is really enabling the wisdom to keep coming, because it's just sort of cyclical of like, you know, out, and then more is, maybe your head is in a place where it's sort of cleared and it's there, and
Yeah.
then it can keep coming.
Like in the past, I recently did that interview with that other person. In the past, I had sometimes afterwards, like after that interview, then I was thinking about. No, let me say it differently. In the past, I had certain situations where I had conversations with people, online, offline, or just what I thought about it. Then I was judging myself for being in that conversation with that person or acting the way that I did in that conversation. So you're replaying that conversation inside of your head. You're judging yourself, or you're just not even judging sometimes, but you're just replaying it.
Okay. And so stuck in that energy is being used for the replay as opposed to being freed up for the
Yeah.
insight, receiving
It,
insight.
in a certain way, you're still kind of stuck in the past when you're
Yeah.
doing that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And when you can truly, because how often when you speak about with people, they just speak about what they did in the past,
Mm.
even if it was good. They still need that idea of tell, say. And then what if you can do that fully for yourself, no filter whatsoever in your digital system, and whatever every interaction that you're having with a new person, then it's like, hey, what's up? How's it with you? Then it's a new chapter because
So
the
more,
past doesn't exist anymore.
very, very rooted in presence. Yeah.
Like the creation of presence is, I think, the end result of the second brain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Our external tools to really expedite the growth, which requires presence.
yeah,
Yeah. Whew. Can you imagine a world of which, for you to be disseminating those resources to help people's internal world is
yeah,
so transformative.
yeah. Like like I said, it's not going as quickly as I want it to be, because I feel like it's difficult to um, express my visions, my ideas in a certain moment with the correct person,
Right.
because then I feel like that I'm forcing that idea coming up.
Right. Like you're selling it, or whatever.
Yeah, then I need to prep, then I need to think, then I need to write it down in which words that I'm using for which character, and like all of that stuff. I'm learning how to express myself in a decent way
Mm-hmm.
for that.
Mm-hmm.
So having conversations like these and putting that online really helps, because then I can just free flow without me thinking about it, and then someone will pick it up.
Right. You're letting the universe, do its thing, and while you're very intentionally doing your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the like almost no one. I recently heard a podcast as well about. I don't often listen to most anymore, but
Okay.
they said most people don't even post more than 3 videos if they want to start a YouTube channel. They just do 3, and then they feel like that they're not getting any traction, so then they stop.
Okay. And
Sorry?
because perhaps, it's just working into their motivation system, whether it's dope or they need to be fed in order to keep motivated, to keep inspiring, so
Yeah. And I'm right now in my YouTube, I'm 200 videos deep. And I'm
what?
still a lot of shorts, so that really helps.
In months? You haven't been doing it that long. That's amazing.
In 5 months now,
Wow, that's amazing. Wow.
but it's the oh, and it's only going to getting faster. It's like this
Hmm.
is just the expression of the self.
And then with the resources of AI, and yeah, it can just really be exponential, the growth.
Like just now, 10 minutes before this conversation, I recorded an introductional for my cohort. Just like, do it right now. I feel it. Do it right now. I'm putting it online. It's already on YouTube. Then I just have to send it later on to the group of 7 people now.
Okay, great.
The, but what I mentioned is, yeah, like just now, yesterday, I put a post on Instagram, which was quite an interesting one, about not being the consumer of information, but be the creator of the information.
Okay.
And having a second brain will help you be that creator.
Mhm.
First for yourself and then later on in public. But first be the creator. But I recorded that video for myself while I was outside. As in, be the creator, basically. And I just heard someone respond upon that and giving me feedback upon, yeah, but what exactly is your message, or who are you giving this message to, or like what's the audience, what's the underlying message, what kind of value are you giving them? Like, I don't care. Truly expressing me. Like
And
the
if the
only
receptive are going to get the message, so that would be my whoever is receptive to the same ideas that I have.
yes. And the only, because I did thought about it like 10 seconds, the only one that I thought about it was my girlfriend. I'm like, okay, would she really be okay with me expressing this? I'm like, yeah, she's okay. Great, do
Oh,
it. Like, and that's just a little check in.
yes.
Um, but for the rest,
Right.
the because like many people within content creation, they have one goal, and that is to create more followers and more
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
more reach.
And that can be for benevolent reasons. Yeah, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Check.
Yeah.
And if you show an or people have a certain incentive, and if you have a certain incentive to get more views, then what do you have to do to create more views? Well, have a very clear message, to have a very controversial message, to a very interesting hook. Bah, 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 bah. I don't work like that.
Hmm. However, from that person's question, there's still, I think there's still very positive things that could help you think about, okay, well, so like what you're saying of, how people are doing their videos and they want something controversial, whatever. I would say, how, for me, it's always my question is always, how can I simplify what I just said in that video, so perhaps it could resonate with more people, you
Yes.
know, or be understandable, relatable to more people, because that's where I struggle is I just talk, but my language, I do, because I'm a teacher of young kids, I do just try to bring it back to that message that the 12-year-old will understand, because that's only going to benefit everyone, is that if it's understandable, or somehow what I like to do, because in when I'm teaching, there are so many, I've spoken about this before, how everyone has a different learning style. Despite, I really put a lot of weight in Jim Quick's fast. So forget what you know, active, be active in it, be engaging with the material. What emotional state are you in now? Are you able to let things go and be present? And then teach another. But then within that, there's a hierarchy of, not a hierarchy, I'm sorry, there are different learning styles. So we talked about this, if some people need to use their body, and then they can engage, they can express and engage with things through dance, or some people are more mathematical, some people are auditory, more visual, need a video, whatever it is. So I do try to, so if you were recording the video and I'm looking at it, how I look at it as someone who, how can he reach more people, is I would say, is he reaching the auditory, is he reaching the visual, is he reaching, so with the story aspect, you're just trying to get a story that is relatable to the most amount of people, because they're all going to be where they are.
Yeah.
So I'm completely with you. That is your reaction to the post, or to the question. It is exactly mine. Um, I don't care.
Basically, yeah.
Go a step further, because of all that you said, because you have different goals and intentions and motivations to that post. It is trying to get your essence out, as opposed to the consumer. Uh, but that doesn't mean we can't also just look from that perspective of the consumer, look from the perspective of the various learners, look from the perspective of, just trying to widen our reach by saying, okay, how is a person in deep pain going to read this? How is a person who is just on fire, ready with so many ideas, how is the person going to receive that post if they are bored? Or, how can we spark what your essence, which is pure, to me, pure love and light, how can that be received? And that's all the things on content creation, is just really that. I feel like the Mindvalley is just all about, how can you get your message and your heart to the most amount of people, because everyone is in a different space.
Yeah. Yeah, that expression is such an important one.
Aren't you just in awe of yourself when, I sort of, I can't believe that I'm in the place that I'm in, just being so open. I'm just so grateful every single day. I'm just so grateful to the universe and myself for my experience of just, life is just, it's so rich when you can be open and present. It's a game changer. It's a whole nother way of experiencing this existence. And for you, I know that you've been through some stuff, and just, are you in awe of yourself in that way of just like, whew, thank you for, like, the between you and the universe, you were able to tap into pain through the experience.
Yeah, and what I noticed is I don't often express gratitude.
Okay.
I experience love around me.
Okay. So that's your gratitude. It's the
Yeah,
love.
it's the experience of love itself. So I'm not really grateful for like the
Mm,
universe or for my growth or for anything else. I'm
just feeling the love.
I'm experiencing the love more and more, and my focus point is to let go of the resistance of that old patterns, which makes me not experience that love just yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's the like this is something like the downside of the spiritual world, or at least that's what I'm seeing in the circles that I'm in. Is everyone is says they're so grateful, but they're not always acting that out,
Mm.
or they're not actually showing that.
It is like a contrived. It's like a forced gratitude,
Yeah,
which I think is a tool that is effective for some people. Where in order to in order to just distract from the narrative, if you can just focus on gratitude, even if it's not a feeling yet, it's just a way to try to move from the thought to the emotion to the actual.
yeah, yeah. And in that case, one of the things, if you are grateful, then be grateful for yourself alone to you. Like you can say thank you, obviously, but it's like sometimes in the spiritual world, things are like over the top of showing gratefulness. Oh, I'm so grateful that you're here, and like yeah, but show that with that person.
Yeah.
Experience that love, that connection that you have with each other.
Yes, and I feel like it is a certain level of presence and self-love and intentional energy to be able to feel. I think a lot of the time it is just banter, like intellectual banter, rather than, we don't. I mean, that's sort of like the mystery of the world, right? Of how to help people feel their soul, feel that the loving
Yeah,
presence, and feel their essence.
and in a certain way, we're already doing that with having conversations like these and showing other
Mod-
people on how we think. Yeah, like being
and
the
it's
model.
for everyone. Our dialogues are only going to help, certain types of people, or people who are in a certain place where they're. I mean, I for so long I didn't know that I wasn't open, but I couldn't be honest, authentic. I just wasn't ready to, or I don't know.
Mm,
I just didn't, like I've said before, I just wasn't intuitive. I wasn't tuned in to me. I was very much living externally with my eyes.
yeah,
So
many of us are.
I love your definition of gratitude. That's a new one for me, that it is beautiful, because I'm so into definitions and what does that word mean to you, or what does that concept mean to you, because it's so hard to communicate, and then we all are looking from our own experience. So I love that you said that you don't feel gratitude. For you, gratitude is love. So because when I'm sort of in that place, in 2 hours, when I'm just like, oh, I'm just so happy to be me right here, right now. Um, and have the capability and the openness, and I can be authentic and authentically try to express my essence, really. I'm just so happy to be in that, say, oh, that's love, just a different way to experience that feeling, that moment, with just other people's, what it means to you. So I appreciate that. And to
Yeah,
me, I see what you're saying. It's just a deeper, not deeper, I shouldn't make it hierarchical or make a comparison. But so yes, I can be grateful, and I can use my words and use my brain to express gratitude, or I can just feel that, rather
yeah,
than the second brain concept is revolutionary to me.
yeah.
um
It is.
And so why did it sort of like AI and the summit, and did that sort of spark a way to activate that to share with others, or that was something that you
No, the backstory behind it is I was working an office job, corporate job, and I felt just overwhelmed by all of the emails that I was receiving.
okay
Just like stress and all of the phone calls and all of the mechanics being on my desk and telling me stuff and overwhelm.
yep
And I started working like 12 hours a day, more and more and more, like never ending stream of BS. And then I needed to prioritize and just focus on the most important thing. But then 80% of it didn't got processed. And I
and
was
when
like,
can I ask when was
sorry.
that?
This is now 2.5 years ago.
Okay
And then I started leaning into the action management, so the getting things done system of David Allen. I
okay
read that book and watched a lot of episodes, podcasts, all of that stuff.
So efficiency and categorizing and prioritizing, how would you sum up that? I'm not familiar.
Is to be in control over your actions instead of managing your time.
Okay.
So, and then placing every action that you must do in a certain
Block.
certain category. And
Okay.
every action is able to put in a certain category, and you're dealing with those categories in a different way.
Okay.
So it's basically just a workflow.
And how was that for your job?
Well, I quit that job before I started that
Oh,
stuff
okay.
because I was like, I'm off. I really didn't like it there.
This is not what life is about.
So I leaned into the action management. I
Oh,
started another job, and then I did my things for that new job. Stuff like went really well. I had real full control over everything. I was able to say no, so that's an important one as well. As in, if your boss says BS things, then you're actually, this is not my fault. This is you.
okay.
Like, you do need a certain level of maturity or confidence, let me say it differently. Like,
Mhm.
believe in your own system, as in, no, this is not this is yours. So then I reduced my work week from 40 hours to 4 hours, basically, which was really great. Yeah, and like every mail that came in, as in, no, this is not my job. You have to be there with that person. This description there. Like every mail that came in, I could answer that within a couple of hours. I
Wow.
had just a couple of meetings, and every meeting that I had a full transcript of that, so I could rewatch everything, connected to the correct
Oh my God.
project. Like everything was so, and I still have all of the data in my second brain right now.
Wow. I feel like it's an accountability is a good word for that, is like along with confidence, where you know what your
Yeah,
responsibilities are, know your accountability, and then you're saying that is not that you need to be accountable for that. Yeah.
yeah. And in a certain time when I was there, 2 or 3 months or 2 months in, I mentioned to those guys, I said, how many projects do you expect me to run, basically? And they said, I don't know, the number 12 or something. And in a certain time, after 4 months, I was running 16, I think, a little bit extra. And I was still just relaxing and being in control, mostly doing my own stuff, and then like being in control over those 16. And they kept giving me more and more projects. I'm like,
Okay.
guys, no. The assignment was 12 of those. What are we actually doing here? And the answer that they gave, which is a very interesting one, which often happens, is they said, no. You're here for 40 hours. I say what you do in those 40 hours. 40
Okay.
hours, you're mine.
Oh my. Okay.
I'm
So
like,
complete
ooh.
yeah.
Like, so basically, I'm in a prison. I'm in a 40-hour a week prison for the salary that you're giving me. this
Oh,
is the rat race that a lot of us are stuck in. And like seeing that and him saying that, I'm like, are you serious?
wow. Wow.
And well, and I was like relatively negatively tuned into in that moment. So I saw the negative behaviors. I was very fearful of the world. And so this was before Dubai. So this was including me being paranoid. But like being highly functioning and paranoid is a very
Dang.
tricky,
Right. Oh my.
if you can imagine.
I can see philosophically both sides of that argument, but I can see for myself, because freedom is my number one motive. I can see how, yeah, that's not gonna work. It's not gonna be helpful to either the company or for me. But I understand it as a, you know, um, thinking of like socialism, Marxism. I see it as a philosophy that, you know, can have its arguments, where I can see how that it goes back to a transactional, you know,
Yeah.
it's a transactional thing of just time. It's before, you have to believe in those illusions. You have to believe in the illusion of time. You have to believe in the illusion of, you can have transactional love, you can have transactional money, you can have transactional energy. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's those constructs that allow them to. So within the like the non-spiritual, like the business world, I can see that as a viable argument.
Yeah, and like a little nuance is what I kind of wanted to add, also because we record all of the stuff. I noticed it with colleagues of mine that bosses were giving them work just to keep them busy, 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 even if it was like BS stuff that they needed to do. And everyone was very polite and actually following those rules.
It's
And I
like our.
was someone who didn't follow that, so I
Mhm.
got fired after that.
Uh-huh.
Well, not directly, but after a couple of weeks, I'm like, good, thank
Thank
you,
you. And
bye.
I mean, it's sadly like our educational system. I do.
Yes.
Because, and do you attribute that because someone higher than them is overseeing and they feel like they have to? I feel like in the
Well,
educational system, the teacher will give busy work because the principal is watching, and then the superintendent is watching the principal, and then the,
yeah.
governmental Department of
Like,
Education is overseeing.
what if the whole class is like playing? Oh no, kids are playing.
Yeah.
Kids are having fun. No.
Because people
But
have the ideas of what should be done, what they
yeah,
think they know
uh,
what to.
and then I'm seeing people outside here. I'm like, and you went to college, you went to university, and you're doing this kind of stuff. And what the hell did it actually meant for you being there and having all of this knowledge?
Mm,
It has been such a derailing of what we can actually achieve and be.
exact.
And it's not a bad thing that it happens, but it's creating that awareness of the issue itself and
Mm,
then inviting people into stepping out of that and be in that fullest version of them.
beautifully said. I'm glad
And
that was
it's
going to go back.
good because
Uh,
that's the nice thing, yeah.
yeah. So you were in the Netherlands, and then what brought you to Dubai? At what point was that, for a job or an experience?
Mindvalley Live.
Okay, gotcha.
That was the reason I started with the certified life coach, which
Mm,
really helped for me.
yes.
Um, at that moment, I started understanding human connections better. Like, it has been really transformative, even though I was back then still in a negative state and I was judging a lot of that because everything was kind of like gapping somewhere. So I
Well,
was still in my negative energy.
you were being triggered often.
Yeah, and as an engineer, as a programmer, you're kind of like, guys, this is very easy to fix. Like, let me fix this for you. And then they didn't respond, and then me judging that, and still having to pay all of that money, and
Mm-hmm.
like
Very.
old patterns kind of popped up.
Mm-hmm. Frustrating. Yeah.
And so I started Mindvalley certified life coach, and then I went to Dubai, basically with nothing on my name. I barely had any money or whatsoever. Then being in Dubai, crazy. Um,
And how long was that? A couple of
uh,
weeks? Kind of.
1.5.
Okay. And that's 2021?
No, past year, a year ago,
Oh,
2023.
okay.
So that was quite fun.
You are fast. I see why people are saying, how is your growth so rapid? I mean, you are on fire, really, to have accomplished so much in a year and a half.
You have no idea. You have, and the challenge, or the interesting one as well, like all of the stuff that I've kind of collected, all of within my second brain and ideas, like I'm only putting out like 5%.
Right, right, right.
So, and the challenge is to express more of me faster.
Okay.
But I haven't found the people, like the finance, I do have stuff that I'm like very, very much lacking. I have very poor, yeah, shall I say it, like social skills?
You do, you're saying?
Well, I find it very difficult to actually connect with someone, like to actually build a relationship with someone.
Okay. Part of it, I wonder if it's you're in a different place, and is it hard for you to put stuff out there knowing that you're going to get so many of those posters, or that doesn't factor in where people are
Oh
not
no,
understand you at this point? Is that a deterrent to you? Or
yeah, sometimes. Like recently, I was in Madeira 8 months ago, something like that. Madeira, yeah, Madeira. Um, and then I mentioned something about you are not your thoughts, you are not your body, but you're that thing that observes that. And I spoke about that during that circle. And later on, I heard the group owner said like, yeah, but people don't follow you. Like, don't say stuff like that. I don't care anymore.
right.
And it's not that I don't care, but it's
You know you have no control over it, right? Of,
yeah.
of
I'm
who's
I'm trusting myself with letting that flow, and then whatever, just putting it out there. Because like yesterday as well, the day before that, someone texted me as in, she's like, you're the most fascinating person that I've met in a long, long, long while. You've unlocked so much in me in the past couple of months. I'm like, wow.
yeah. They'll come, and I think they'll come more often because I do feel like people are I think there are more tools out there, and people are starting just even with the breath of just I mean in 1979 when I'm in elementary school, there's nothing internal. There was no language for it, there was no lesson for it, there was no modeling of it, and I do feel like there's going to be more modeling.
So that's quite an. Looking forward to that.
Good, good. So with you were saying that from your job 2.5 years ago, you still have everything in the second brain. What does that mean? That means that you are able to utilize some things in your business experience in the spiritual world, or you're saying how that works
Well,
externally?
um, like let me say it differently. How my second brain is built up is that I have my contact list in there. I have my agenda in there. I have my action lists in there. I have my projects in there. I have my areas from like Livebook, the 12 areas in there. And I have all of my notes in there. Conversation with someone, like even an audio message with someone, I'm listening to that audio message and then I'm writing down the audio message with that person and the conversation that we had. Like his entry point and on my entry point and on his entry point and my entry point, to kind of see what the argument of that person is, or that layer of belief system. And then I'm tuning into that one, as in, hey, I just noticed that you said that pattern. Is that something that is that a storyline that you want to hold? Like, and I do that with everything. So, and it has been growing. Of course, at first beginning, it was just action management. Then it connected to projects, to para, to resources, to archive, like all of the different things. So it is a growth circle, but it's starting with that little basis, as in, starting with the very first things. And now I can go back, because now in my second brain I have 2,500 contact people.
Wow.
And then including where are they from which interaction did I had with them, which person is that, what kind of notes did I have with that person. Like,
Wow.
this is my lead generation list.
Okay. My goodness.
And it is my past life.
Okay.
And it's there so I can be full present here right now, without me thinking about all of the
Yes.
patterns with my different things.
Yeah. Talking about lead generation or email lists, I just from experiencing like a webinar on how to get more views or whatever, are you at that stage where you're ready to, or do you have an email list for your content? Do you know any?
I do have, of course, email addresses, like everyone has, like stored in their mailbox. But I don't have like a subscription weekly stuff like that,
Right.
because the goal is to reduce the
Else? Or,
notifications and the overwhelm. But I'm not in that state of a webinar just yet. But I just started my first cohort for a group to explain to them how to build their own second brain.
okay.
And I started off with the intention of it being 5 people. And now the 7th already signed in. So I'm increasing that level.
So how did you disseminate that opportunity to certain people, or it's via, how did you get the 7? How are you?
I texted it in a certain group, in the AI group. I said as in, hey, I'm doing this thing for 7 people, for 5 people. Who's interested? And then a couple of those responded to me in person.
In our WhatsApp, or did I miss?
In the AI
Okay.
WhatsApp group. I don't know if you are in that.
Okay. I think so, but I missed that. I don't check it very often. Even I was checking a few days ago to see if it's possible to have notifications for only certain people on WhatsApp or Telegram. And I don't see that that's a possibility, because sometimes I would miss yours because I don't want to be bothered by the hundreds of, Mindvalley or, artificial intelligence groups or teacher groups that I have.
What you could do is go to Instagram Or then you do have Instagram, not WhatsApp, but go to Instagram and then highlight
Yeah,
me or certain persons.
so I don't use Instagram, but when I do, I'll know that you can delineate who you want to be notified by.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I will send you the details directly because
Yeah.
then we've got that done.
Thank you.
And so much fun.
It is good that you're having fun. Okay, so you're very busy. Tell me what you are. Are there any events or any things on your calendar that you have a timeline goal for? Are you doing any? So I know you're not in the U.S., but people are going to a manifesting um, weekend
Yeah.
in Florida, and just are there any events or any coaching things, or you're just kind of you're in your zone right now?
Yeah, let me just kind of
Okay,
finish
sorry.
this off for a second. Never say sorry, by the way. This has been sent, and then I'm going to send you the sign in form as well. And where are you in my archive? Like, archiving people is really useful if you're not actively speaking with them.
Okay.
Oh, so amazing. Great. Sign in. Other things coming up for me. Yeah, but I find it difficult to earn money because like earning money is like a real
Mm-hmm.
thing. So if someone listens and wants to help me like monetize this stuff, please reach out.
Right. That's goals that you're needing.
Yeah, like that is because there's a lot of trauma around money from my side, and it's the like my plan kind of is to go to Abraham Hicks in
What
March,
in March? Okay. And where's that? Or online?
Costa Rica, I think.
Oh,
So that would be a week-long cruise or 10-day cruise.
wow.
And then being in that state with all of those people who really tune into their emotional state.
That sounds dreamy, just to be surrounded
Yeah.
by like-minded. Yes. Are there volunteer opportunities like at Mindvalley where you could go for less if you are volunteering on the cruise, or?
I don't know. And I wouldn't even volunteer there.
Okay. You
Like I
want to
really would focus on, okay, just if you need 10K, focus on making 10K and then go
Okay.
there and be
Okay.
fully present there.
Understood.
That's my idea because
Yes.
then you can be fully there for you instead of
Mhm.
just serving other people.
Exactly. Yeah, for the volunteer
Um,
opportunity in Valley, it's so hard. You do miss you do miss things, you're kind of at their
yeah,
beck and
and
call.
it's good for networking. If that's your goal, then it's
Right.
great. But if you're there for yourself and really tune into the speakers, then I wouldn't volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's coming up. I want to go to Mindvalley U, of course, this year. And I'm thinking about something like A-fest,
Yes.
but I don't know for sure. I kind of, yeah, I would really love that.
What's the location of A-fest this year? Do you know?
Nee, not Barcelona. I don't know.
Okay.
I can kind of guess, but that's a useless guess. I just don't know.
Yeah. Oh, so I went to Mindvalley twice. I don't think that I'll go this summer. I am definitely one of the people who, I don't travel so much anymore. I used to back in college. I got around more. Um, but I'm one of those people who are probably would have been enticed if it were a different location. But the third time in Estonia, I think for me, it's about more than just one thing. So, um, last year I did some networking, and that was my very first time ever needing to network or desiring to network with people, and that was super fun. But now it would be, I'm not into going for me. That the first year it was going for me. Second year, it was networking. And this year, it would be more just experiencing with like-minded people, like the cruise that you're going on, and just experiencing things that I haven't before geographically and with people. And yeah, so I
Yeah.
think I'll sit that one out. But A-fest is certainly appealing, and people that everyone that I've spoken to who's gone there, it's an experience like no other. Even when they've been in this spiritual Mindvalley world, it's just very different
Yeah.
to just be that intimate and be able to have the conversations. And as it was explained to me, just to be able to wake up and have those connections the next morning again, right there in this, just dreamy experience.
Yeah.
Next level.
Maybe something similar like Burning Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind value is more, for me, just how I see it is either a transference of knowledge or whatever. And then the A-Fest just brings it like right to the heart, experiential. You're feeling, you are feeling. There's not a lot of knowledge or tools being acquired. It's all about just the experience of feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like
connect.
in the most probably my next Mindvalley U, it will just be networking, not
Mm,
barely even the speakers,
right.
because I can rewatch the speakers later on
Exactly.
just as well. Like I have my laptop and I have my data analytics, and if I have some useful idea,
You
do
can act.
that.
You've got those resources, and now it's about the connections and the networking. Yeah.
Yeah, like I
Which
want to know people.
I do feel like I'm very impressed with their summits, as far as just sparking ideas, sparking resources. Like that couch. Is that your couch?
Yeah, with my jacket still, like very unprofessionally, my jacket and my scarf.
Very nice. Well, because you're human, so it's good to remind people of that.
I do. I'm human for sure. It's not a bad thing. It's such an experiential, such a nice experience, but still,
It is a wild ride.
yeah. So it will be fun. Yeah, and what am I actively thinking about now is I recently had that conversation with someone, and she asked, "What is the biggest struggle that you're the biggest hurdle that you're fighting at the moment?" And for me, it's really to express myself decently upon the world in a profound way, like to get people to listen to like just this conversation, basically. Um,
Because it will spark so much if
yeah,
if they're in that place of being open, or not triggered in a negative way. I feel like that impedes. It's the whatever their experience is, however they receive. And if they are going to feel the negative trigger, then all bets are off. They're just not going to get it. But if they're not, and that could be with anything, with our voice, with our, there's a beautiful story in, Dr. Perry is a psychologist, and he wrote one of the first books, actually, I would say, in my like 50s. So I turned 50 and I read this book, and I do feel like this psychological book sort of triggered my spirituality in a way, because it was so fascinating, the psychology. So he is a psychologist who works with severe trauma, like when there is a cult. And there was a horrible situation in Texas years ago, here in the States, where there was a cult, and the cult leader, all of the adults died in this cult because they poisoned themselves, believing that the end was coming or something. And then you had these 20 children. So Dr. Perry goes in and works with these orphaned kids. Or the name of the book is, the boy who thought he was a dog, or something similar. The boy who was raised as a dog, perhaps. So just these extreme traumas. So there was a boy maybe there was an older couple who had fostered this boy, and they were maybe in their 70s or something, and they literally kept the boy in a cage. And then the wife passed away, and so the man didn't, just continued keeping him in a cage. So these severe traumas. Um, anyway, so Dr. Perry, that was just such a fascinating book for me to read, to get into the psychology, which for me was a conduit to spiritual. Like, it sort of needed to make sense intellectually, and then I was able to somehow open up into feelings. Um, so he wrote a book with Oprah again. So Oprah and Dr. Perry wrote a book called What Happened to You. And two concepts I really got. A friend and I were talking about the book when we read it years ago together. I think she's probably the one who sent it to me. I loved how sometimes it's things that didn't happen that are the trauma. You didn't get the nurturing, so rather than people just going to say, like, oh, let me think of my history. What happened? I can't think of any. I wasn't sexually abused. I wasn't bullied. What is this feeling? And sometimes it's that you weren't nurtured, you weren't seen, you weren't loved, you weren't understood. It could be also what didn't happen to you. But the reason I brought up the book now is because there's just a very simple story from there, talking about triggers and how subtle they can sometimes be. And it was a middle school boy in class with a new teacher. It was a male teacher in English, and it was the first day of school or the second day of school. And the teacher was sort of going to they had to write something, what you did, an essay, what you did last summer or something. And the teacher was just going and standing and looking over and assisting and getting to connect with each student. And when the teacher leaned over this boy and just got a little close, the boy just flung his hand up and hit the teacher in the face and then got suspended. And Dr. Perry was thinking that his father, the boy's father, abused him, and the teacher was wearing the same deodorant. So it was a sensual, just get out of my space. This is not safe. Do not come that close to me. And then he's punished and thrown out of the school, and like, what a disaster.
It's
The subtle,
already amazing that he's actually protecting himself in that situation.
yeah. And so unconsciously, right?
Yeah.
It's like breathing or the heart. You're just, this is not safe. This person
Yeah.
is too close to me, and they're going to hurt me as they have before because of the smell. So just, it's so interesting just talking about getting content out there. It's so beautiful that you don't care, because you can't care, because you can't control what the triggers are going to be. Some people are not going to like a beard. Some people are not going to like the accent, whatever it is. Just the
Yeah.
subtle triggers. It's fascinating.
And that's an invitation for them to kind of check into themselves.
Mm. Although the hardest time, probably, right?
Yeah, true, but it's
It is imperative. Yeah.
like now the woman that kind of judged my
Mm-hmm.
video. The question is a little bit what's triggering my content in her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about my content, but it's about her eyes
Mm-hmm.
or her mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
not really
and
a point.
yeah, no. I completely agree. And you were speaking before about how you are able to. I don't even know how to explain it really, but it really, I completely understood, and it resonated with me. Just saying how you are able to now evaluate from another's perspective, whether it's the business or. So I feel like with her, it's not, you're able to open yourself to being curious about another's perspective without that perspective altering what you do from here.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
what I often do is like I really listen for insights.
Mm-hmm.
What can I listen? What can I understand from the insight that I'm experiencing from someone else?
Mm-hmm.
And like, even during these conversations, I often don't even have that during these conversations, but I'm having that while after like rewatching our call, because now
Yes.
we're like recording, so I know that then I'm
Yes.
more in the flow state.
Yeah.
But in a normal situation, I listen for someone's insights and their belief system, because in the past I thought the world is made out of logic. I need to tell you the arguments that makes you understand my perspective.
Yes. Oh
And
boy.
escaping that idea,
That's a
as
big.
in, yeah, but I notice it within the Mindvalley groups as well. When they're having a discussion, I'm like, it's a really great conversation. Let's have that live on one-on-one instead of over text and all of that stuff. And so during the cohort now, I'm going to teach people how to listen for insights.
Mm,
Um, I'm going to separate those two, as in, on the one side, Jim Quick method, you capture the ideas, the information that I'm telling you.
mm-hmm.
Only capture. You're not allowed to modify anything about it. Only capture information.
But yeah.
If it resonates with you, you don't need to capture everything. And the other column, you're going to write down, I don't really resonate with it because this doesn't really make sense. Or this is an old belief that I'm not holding anymore. But separating those two is a great starting point for later on having that conversation with me or with someone else. Saying, hey, Tim, you just mentioned that idea. Does that mean that you believe this? Or what do you mean with that? Because then you're checking into my belief system
Mm-hmm.
without saying, you just said that. I really disagree because.
Yep.
And then you're fighting around that argument. And escaping that idea is such a beneficial one when you're
Mm,
having a conversation with someone. And what I noticed because like everyone has that pieces of insight, that depth of knowledge, that spark of understanding. And then they return into like noise. It happens quite often. And with the noise that I mean, they're not actually having that insight. They're not integrated that insight into their normal behavior. Quite often when I'm annoyed by people, because I do get annoyed by people, um, I I saw that insight that they had, and then I see them hopping back to that noise.
okay.
I'm like, you already know this. Why do you like go back in your awareness?
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite often why I get annoyed by people when they.
Mm-hmm. You're just like you were there. You can't slide backwards.
Yeah, and like I know that, but most other people don't really. Is that organizing their thoughts?
I
They
feel like you are at a level where you have very conscious communication.
with myself, yeah.
No, 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 no. I mean, with
Oh,
you consciously communicate, and you want the other to also be as conscious of their communication with you. And so I think that they slip back into unconsciousness, ego, or whatever you want to call it, where they are, their motive for the conversation becomes needing to be understood by you. So they're going to keep saying their point, and maybe in not so nice ways, because that's the need that's in the forefront. They need to be understood. And they're
yeah,
just going to keep trying to say it in a way where you can understand their perspective.
yeah.
But that's not, they slide back
And
into.
Yeah, and it's obvious that that happens, especially with intellectual beings, intellectual people, because they have been taught by the educational system that they need to be right, that they need to have the best, the good answer.
100%.
And it has been so ingrained into that system that we don't actually listen to each other's understanding.
Oh, yes.
And
Bingo.
we validate ourselves how often we are correct. It's not about being correct. It's about experiencing your own belief system underneath that, of which it includes. So, and that can go, this is basically also the reason why people argue. If someone is in a certain belief system and the other one is a little bit deeper in that belief system, and there's a gap between those things, and you have a certain argument or reason why something like this is better or why something like that is better, then you're arguing around a belief system or difference in depth of belief system. And that's where a lot of fighting comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because the true oneness, spiritual growth, is to go deeper with each other in that belief system. I said, hey, you're in that belief system. What do you mean by that? What makes you think in that way? Actually being curious towards each other.
Definitely.
And even being curious upon yourself. And that's why second brain comes in. Because what I noticed, like a lot of people talk and they are open and they experience, but they don't do it so organized in such a way so you can use our conversation that we had and that conversation that I have with my girlfriend and that conversation there, and like putting that all of that together as in, Tim, that's the pattern that you're showing. Oh, wow. And then hop, new level opens up. Like, and now my new levels of awareness are like daily. Yesterday I had a massive one as well. I'm like, what?
And then what do you do with that? Write it or try to express it or just sit and get quiet with it? What's your...
I often try to save it, or not even try, but when I get the chance to save it, then I save it.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, with the one of yesterday, I didn't, because it's kind of like, it's a tricky one to want
Mm-hmm.
to explain, and the second one to actually speak out loud for other
Mm-hmm.
people to accept it in a certain way.
And initially you probably don't need to, but just you sit with it, and just
Yeah,
hold it.
yeah. I just, because right now I can kind of tune into that state again, and now I'm like, okay. So for future decisions that I must make, I will take that insight into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, most probably after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, when I'm having that insight a couple of times, or that reminder a couple of times already, then I can say, hey guys, this is how I stand upon that.
Right.
Because then I reflected upon my own point from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the trickiest thing for me is living in a world where right, wrong, good, bad are so deeply believed.
And
It's
what do you mean with that?
well, so I don't believe that there is good, bad, right, wrong. And just when you were talking about people arguing they have to be right, well, what's right for them is not universally right for everyone. Um, there's uh, the thought experiment or the philosophical question of if there are seven people standing in front of a train, you know that if you just push one down onto the tracks, it will stop the train and it will save the other six. So what do? Do you push the one person and essentially murder one because you believe that you hope, you think you you are wanting to save 6 other people, say it's your family members or whatever, to complicate it. But so what's right to do was certainly not right for the person who lost their life. There is no universal right and wrong. There is no universal good and bad.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't.
and that starts with like what if there's no good and bad? And that starts with the self. So dropping the notion of judging yourself for whatever um, thing that you did which wasn't beneficial for your goal. Because that's quite often what we mention as bad. If
Like
you're
pleasing, right?
sorry?
Like people pleasing would be an example of, you did something, it was what the other person wanted, so for them it could be considered good, or you think it was good because you're helping someone get someone do something that they wanted, and yet was that serving yourself for your goal? So even people pleasing.
Well, let's kind of dissect that. What if, like, because people pleasing is very like broad spectrum, like a word, but it's the
Maybe filling a need for another if they asked it, which does not align to serving your North Stars, or even, so say someone asks for your energy in some way. Oh, help me, um, throw this dinner party for this political event, and you don't really want to do it because you're starting your own, doing you're trying to get your podcast running, or you're doing something for your North Stars, and
yeah.
yet you feel, so you feel like you're helping and they're getting help, so that could be seen as good. But as far as your own alignment to using your energy towards your current goals or expressing your essence in that moment.
Yeah, and everything is just being in line with like creating situations around you which makes you feel better or the best even. Like what kind of situations will make you feel better? I've got no idea what it is, but it isn't really like um, it could be helping someone with throwing their dinner party. Could be that that thing is making you
But
feel
yes.
the best. But if it's like, nah, I kind of don't want to do that. I kind of want to do this thing. Then do the other thing. Because if you're then helping someone else's vision, then you're not in alignment of yourself. Because you have your own ideas and your own purpose and your own creation. Like we're so creators in our life, but speaking with others is a limitation of that
Mm.
state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or being with others, doing this. Like together you can get like really far, but it's so much noise.
Yes.
Like I'm in a couple of business groups, I'm like, there's so much noise, guys. What do you mean? It's just like cozy. Like, no, but noise. You're speaking
Un-
about nothing.
uncon- Unconscious, yeah, communication, I guess.
Yeah, and like it's fun and it's great, but it's
Not real.
and it and it's and the tricky thing is then when I mention something like that, as in, I'm sorry, I'm like kind of disconnecting because there's a lot of noise that's actually not benefiting. Then they're asking, what do you mean? Why?
Well,
Well, where to start?
have deeper goals. Maybe theirs is, material, external, transactional goals that they're trying to accomplish, like logistics, human things, and you're on a different plane of existing.
Yeah, and I noticed the thing that often is holding me back is to speak with people, or no, to hold on to the people that have old belief systems.
Are no longer serving your North Stars. Yeah. Allowing you to serve. Or, yeah. Mm.
Like, and it's I had that with my family as well, as in family and friends, as in, I need to be there for them, and I need to take care of them, and I need to take care of my family, and like all of that other parts were withholding me from my growth.
Mm.
Now when I'm just now like in this Airbnb with the service girl that like took care of everything here, like, whoa, what energy! That was my feeling, and I noticed myself getting pulled back into the physical
Okay.
without being in line with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest challenge is that to disconnect yourself from those people who create that disalignment for the self and grow to the people that give you that alignment. And the more that you grow, the more lonely that you become.
Mm.
No, it's not really true because I feel amazing, but the lonely in the physical sense, in
Yep.
the cultural
Yep.
sense,
Mm-hmm.
as in I can like sometimes I don't see any people for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Love it because that's like bubbling my. Abraham Hicks talks about that, bubbling my cork all the way
Okay.
up.
So you're just using your energy internally,
Um,
like a focus of energy, not pouring out to others. You're using it to.
well, there is not really a limitation on energy. So I don't have 100% of energy, and then I can dissipate that to all of the different people. I just noticed there's so much energy inside of me, and when I'm speaking with certain situations, then it's a limitation of expressing that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm having certain conversations and I feel like, ooh, this is not really for me, then I'm just cutting that out so I can be more in that alignment state. There is no limit in energy. That's
I do.
old.
I do feel. Yeah. I have to. Oh, I have to overcome that one. I do have a conceptual way of. Yeah. I don't know. I could use your help with that. I because it's always a choice. So I guess where I struggle with energy not being unlimited is that as a human, I do feel constrained by time, although I know that's an illusion. So I do see my choice as I am choosing to either give you my energy or to give me my energy or to give you my time. So I do grapple with that. It's good to hear you.
Yeah, and the challenge thing is, like little nuance, you don't give me your energy.
Right, of course. I'm just expressing it how I
You're
would.
just expressing your own energy.
Yeah.
And the challenge thing is to express your energy in such a way that you feel like, now I'm truly being heard. Like only
Authentic
speak
and.
with those who really listen.
Oh, are we frozen? Can you hear me? You're frozen.
Yeah, we're
Hello?
back.
Oh, sorry. You were frozen for a while there.
Yeah, so the last thing is only speak to those who are listening.
But that
Like
but that also may be a judgment call, right? We're judging or it's our perception that they will be receptive to what we're saying or not. So I mean it's
true,
hard to avoid judgment.
true, and it's like test and error, and just finding a new person, and then noticing, ooh, that person is not really listening to me.
How does it
Let
make
me
you
just
feel,
not
right?
spend that hour with that person anymore.
Yeah, to me it's sort of trying to figure out, which is it's ridiculous, but yeah, I'm kind of predicting, or based on the past communication with that person, you're predicting whether or not they'll be receptive
Yeah, and it's
or be curious. Receptive.
like everyone is growing in consciousness. Like especially us in the spiritual world, in the ideal situation, you are a new person every month. and that people around you are saying like, wow, you changed so much. That's the ideal situation. So if you and I don't talk for a week, and the week later I just notice, how Juliet, you changed so much. It's so amazing.
You're going backwards. No, I'm just kidding. You're getting more unconscious. No, sorry. No, just about how we constantly we just slip back. We can't be.
Yeah. So you're often checking in with that person, as in, has that person grown in a certain level in which that you want to have contact with them again? Like, that's fine to kind of have that check-in. But the danger is to start a conversation and then judging that person in that moment based on your memory that you had from a month ago or a year ago, or
Right.
like
Not
still
factor.
being open for that person.
Yeah, exactly. Factoring in the growth, or
Yes.
at a slow rate or a quick rate or whatever. There's always growth.
Yeah, because like a lot of people, like even with many people are judging themselves for that. I'm doing that for myself as well. Like sometimes I find it difficult to admit a certain behavior, negative behavior that I showed,
Okay.
because that included me thinking about a situation that I did a year ago, and then
Mm-hmm.
said, I like didn't do that properly. Like I
And you,
need to admit that.
yeah, because it's best to let it go anyway and not revisit that old narrative. Or
Well, you kind of need to revisit that old narrative. That's the thing. You kind of need to look into your shadows.
yeah.
Saying, this was the behavior that I showed. Fuck. That's a
Mm,
painful one.
yeah.
And like feel it in your body as an, oh,
Right.
you're showing yourself so naked
Mm, yes.
to your own consciousness.
Mm,
And like, but then you're like healing yourself, but also intergenerational, all of that kind of stuff. Because
mm-hmm.
you're the summation of all of your generations before you, or at least that's the belief system that I hold.
Right.
So
Right.
if someone else has another different theory, then please come in.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is one of the insights, like the belief systems that I have.
Yes. When we're
Um,
talking about, slipping back into unconsciousness, or, when we're talking with someone and they get into ego or whatever, they're it just reminded me that one of my favorite things about the human existence is that I love that we can't unknow things. Like we can slip back into unconsciousness, but once we have the insight, we we have access to it. I love that.
and do you agree with that? Or agree, is that something that you hold, as in
I'm talking
no one
about
can actually go back?
I'm talking about you can't unknow, like when you've sparked an insight of inner wisdom from your soul. Like once you got this great insight of truth, like your own personal truth or attached to universal truth, whatever you believe, like once you get the deep knowing of like, I just aligned with my soul, I get that. I I do believe that you can't unknow that, because that goes beyond intellect. It's not a thought. It's an inner knowing, a deep connection, alignment. So that's what
Hmm,
I mean with like it
that's an
just
interesting one.
inner wisdom. I feel like once you got it, you're like, oh my gosh, because you felt it. You felt the feeling, whether it was, an epiphany is a word that,
And
comes
and
to.
I think that like you and I have different viewpoint upon that,
Okay.
because that's an interesting one.
So Ted, do you want to share? Or I'm not talking about an ego, like, oh, that makes sense about that trauma, or sense, I'm
No, no,
talking about
like yeah,
like a spark from like you were saying, in the epidemic of loneliness, you know, I feel in the world where as you were saying, there's loneliness of people, but then the loneliness that you want to, if you're feeling loneliness like deep, deep, deep in your heart, it just means that you're not aligned with yourself and the universe, to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of like two
Okay.
different things. Like the first one was if you had an insight, then you can't like go back in like the old ways and the old noise or the old realization, old consciousness. I kind of like in my idea is we are born with that inner knowledge, with that enlightenment feeling of
Yes,
love, just like spark, and everything is amazing,
I
like
agree.
fantasy and ideas and all of that kind of stuff, including all of the insights and like understanding of the emotional being, just like feeling your
Well,
body,
yeah, the soul, right? The
the
spirit, the
soul,
soul.
yeah, just being there, like the purest version of like you. And then later on, like life happens, culture happens, trauma happens, like or the lack of certain things, what you mentioned about, like love, comfort, stuff like that. And then your trigger response is a defense mechanism which creates you not being as aware of
Mm-hmm.
your source,
Right.
your connection to the soul. So, God forbid, it's a strange thing to say, but let's imagine something like horrible happens here in the street. Like I see a horrible accident, like I see something that kind of traumatizes me.
Mm-hmm.
That event will create me having a disconnect from my soul, from my inner peace.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because that will be a trauma response, like a defense mechanism of my body, as in,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's something that happened. So I do believe that you can kind of like lost that connection even if you are in a certain state,
Mm-hmm.
that you can lose your connection after a traumatic experience.
Right. That makes sense. I think we're speaking about it in two different ways, but I completely, completely agree that many things can muddle the, make it foggy,
A little bit. Even
the
Riverside's not
alignment.
amazing for the. Yeah, we're back. Like
Oh,
Riverside's not amazing. I heard so many positive things about it, but
but we did pretty well because we go on, so it's only a little, and it could be, I mean, I'm sitting still, but it could be my my satellite, or who knows, it's not always them. But
and
no, so I completely agree with what you said. I guess when I'm talking about like the sparking of the inner knowing, I guess it's sort of like if I have a moment of complete and utter awe and peace, and say I'm just watching like the birth of a child or something. I'm watching the birth of my child's child, and it's just the it's just the feeling of the soul that was achieved in that moment, I would say. And I'm
yeah,
saying that I don't believe that that feeling can ever be unknown. I guess it's like the sparking of the
and
deep, deep love and inner soul that I feel can't be undone.
and what is withholding you from experiencing that emotion constantly after that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So what if you're seeing your daughter's child get born, then
How
you're
do I?
having that emotional state of
Yes.
happiness, of gratitude, love, like all of that state. In that moment, it's very, very, very intense.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, like a week after, you're not in that same state
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Right. Right. Right.
What happened in between?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, life. Right. Yeah, the unconsciousness. Yeah.
Yes, life. But life is culture, life is limitations, life is
Yeah.
resistance. That's kind of what makes it fun, but it's
Yes.
also the reason why we
Like
get
a game.
back into the noise.
Yes. And I feel like every day trying to be a better version of myself, trying to be a more conscious person, more aware, that each day, I hope that incrementally I have the wherewithal, the emotional state and the resources to more easily get back to that feeling.
Yeah. And in a certain way, there is somewhere a limitation there. Like how to explain that? Growth itself is not the purpose. As in
Okay.
growth in I want to be a little bit better each day
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
as a focus point. Because
Mm.
like you will have some bad days and I will have some bad days and like everyone has some bad days. The challenge is to be aware of the patterns that you're holding. The
Mm-hmm.
awareness is the goal. It's not
Yeah.
being better.
Yes. So to me, I mean that exactly what you're saying, just in a different way. That for me to be a better version of myself means that I become more consciously aware of presence.
Yeah. And the invitation is to actually say that last part. As in the goal is to become more consciously aware of my patterns, of my behavior.
Right.
Because that will focus your subconscious into doing certain things.
Right. Right.
If you're responding anger in traffic or whatever reason, whatever situation, you're like, oh, I'm aware I just showed anger. That's an interesting one. What's beneath that? Ooh, that's my fear. Ooh, that was an old pattern.
Yes.
You're not judging yourself on being happy all of the time or being better, but you're
Right.
judging yourself, or not
Right.
even judging. You're focusing on being aware of that
Of the
physical behavior.
or of the emotion, like of the trigger of whatever. Yeah. I would love next time we talk maybe to hear your views on manifesting, and um
Oh,
I
that's fun.
yeah, because I that's yeah, I'm not so well versed and I don't have a lot of conversations about it. So
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
yeah.
really amazing. Then I really need to go now because we've gone
Yeah.
way over the hour.
Yes.
And I
Okay.
have to call my girlfriend after this one.
Oh, good, good, good. All right. Enjoy the day.
Thank you so much. I really loved the conversation.
All right. Bye, Tim. Thank you.
Bye bye.